Don't worry about messing up. Alright, hello everyone. Today we're going to be solving Leet code 20 valid parentheses. Given a string as containing just the characters, open and closing parentheses, open and closing curly braces, and open and closing brackets, determine if the input string is valid. The input string is valid if open brackets must be closed by the same type of brackets, open brackets must be closed in the correct order, and every bracket must have a corresponding open bracket of the same type. Alright. So I have some examples here, and I'm going to show you guys what we're going to do. To solve this problem, we need a stack. So I'm going to initialize that here. Let's just pretend this is our stack, or basically our array. And we're going to go through and add every open bracket we see. And as soon as we come across a closing bracket, we want to check if it has a corresponding, if it is the correct bracket that closes our last open bracket. So for example, let's say we go through in the first example. We're going to have a open parentheses here. And next, so that takes care of the first one. And next, we're going to see that this is a closing bracket. We want to know, does this closing bracket, does its open version, is it equal to what's last on our stack, our last open bracket? We want to know, does this close this? And we have to know if they're the same type. So to do that, we know that the open version of a closing parentheses is this. And when is that equal to the top of our stack? It is, so we continue. But the way to do that is the computer doesn't know intuitively what the opening version of each closing bracket is. So what we do is create a hash map, which I have right here. And I'm going to go over how we're going to use this. We're going to go through it, and every time we see a closing parentheses, we're going to query our hash map and see if its open value is equal to the top of our stack. All right, so let's go again. And we see that we have an open bracket here. Next, we have a closing one. We're going to check in our hash map, and we're going to see this is the key, and its value is here. Is this equal to the top of our stack, which is another open parentheses? It is, so we continue. So we pop this off and continue down our list. Next, we'd see this open bracket here. We add it to our stack, and then we see a closing bracket. We're going to do the same thing. Look at our hash map. What's the open value of this bracket? It would be here. And is that equal to what's at the top of our stack? Well, the open value would be here, and is that equal to the top of our stack, which is a closing bracket? It's not. These are not equal, so we'd immediately return false. Let's go over an example where it actually does work and it's valid parentheses. So example 4. We're going to add the opening bracket here, another opening bracket here, and then we come across our first closing bracket. We go to our hash map, look at the open version here, and we say, is that equal to the top of our stack? Top of our stack is also the same. So these are equal. We continue. We pop that off, and we go down to our next value. Now we're currently here. This is another closing bracket. We want to see, does the open brackets, is the open version of this bracket equal to the top of our stack? It is, so it would be here. Is it equal to the top of our stack, which is the C, or the open parentheses? These are equal, so we pop this off and continue. We're actually done with everything inside of the string, so now we would just return true because our stack is empty. And we haven't hit a false condition yet. Hopefully that makes sense, and we're going to code this up. So first, what we want to do is turn our string into an array. So let array equal s.split. Next, we want to say initialize our stack. So let stack equal an empty array. Now we want to create our map. And our map would look exactly like this. So for the keys will all be closing brackets and the values will be open brackets. So let's say let hm for hash map equal, and we're going to pretty much copy this exact formula here. So when we see a closing parentheses, it's going to be equal to the open version, closing brackets, it's going to be equal to the open version, and one last one for the curly brace. The closing curly brace is going to have the corresponding open brace. Here we go. So that's perfect. Next, we want to iterate through our array and add only open brackets to our stack. So we're going to create a for loop. So for let I equal 0 while I is less than array.length I++. And now we want to say if the current element we're looking at is an open bracket, we want to add it to our stack. So how would we do that? We'll say if, and we're going to make a little array of all the open brackets that we want to add to our stack. There's only 3, so it shouldn't be too much. So we say open bracket here, open bracket here, and what's the last one we're missing? The parentheses. So something like this. So if the current element we're looking at includes any of these, then we want to push it to our stack because that means it is an open bracket. So let's say array at index I. Perfect. So if that's true, we want to stack.push array at index I. Perfect. So what are we going to do for our else condition? Else, that means we reached a closing bracket. So what do we want to do? We want to say, we want to pop off the most recent element on our open bracket. So we're going to say let open equal stack.pop. So this will give us, like in this example here, if we reached a closing bracket like this one here, we want to get the most recent open bracket, which would be this one here. So this will give us our open bracket, and we want to say if open does not equal hashmap at array at position I, which would be the current closing bracket we're looking at, and if we look at the hashmap, it would actually correspond, the value would be the open version. If those are not equal, then we just want to return false. Otherwise, we return true. And then for the final condition, we just want to make sure that every closing bracket has a corresponding open bracket of the same type. And to do that, we just ensure that the stack is empty. So if the stack is empty, that means everything is found a match, and we can end and return true. So return stack.length equals 0. And if that evaluates to true, then we return true. If not, it would be false. Let's check. Run this here. And there we go. We solved Leet code 20. I hope this explanation was clear and concise. If you have any questions, drop them down below. Remember to like, do all that good stuff. Peace.